Hello from the Global Legal Blockchain Consortium Annual Meeting at National Harbor, Maryland. I am Pierson Grider.
And I'm Stevie Ghiassi.
And we're on the road with the Legal Talk Network. And we're back. Thank you so much for joining us on the road. It's a pleasure to be here. Today, we're talking with Stevie, and we're talking about blockchain. So, Stevie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your organization, and what initiated your interest with blockchain?
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder and CEO of Legala. We're based in Australia, a legal technology company, obviously. And in my spare time, I'm fortunate enough to be the president of the Australian Legal Technology Association. So we've got about 40 startup members, all building very innovative legal technology in Australia. And we kind of started our journey about 2 years ago, building a secure online communication tool for the legal industry, mostly targeted at the solos and the small law firms of the world, although we've got all walks of life using the platform. And our vision was always to build the world's largest legal ecosystem. And as part of that, we started exploring legal technology to create new types of business models. And one of those was Legal Aid, which is a decentralized legal charity. And when we got out to build that, we realized that the infrastructure is still pretty new. And so now we realized there was an opportunity to build the blockchain infrastructure for the future of legal services. So that set us down the path. And now we're building basically everything that you would need to build decentralized applications for the legal industry.
And at the Global Legal Blockchain Consortium's annual meeting this year, there were several demonstrations and presentations of blockchain technology. I know you went over a little bit about your technology, but what did you specifically present during the annual meeting?
Yeah, so if you've been in the blockchain space for any amount of time, you hear ad nauseum about the 2 billion unbanked. So there's a lot of financial inclusion services, and naturally the first use case for Bitcoin, for blockchain was Bitcoin. So, helping bring people that didn't previously have a bank account online. But the next figure you kind of hear about is people without internet, which is 3.5 million. And that's not much fun having Bitcoin without an internet connection. So, lots of new technologies being targeted at those two problems. But the elephant in the room is that according to the United Nations, 4 billion people, more than half the world's population, live without access to justice and the rule of law. So there's a bigger problem sitting there, and these technologies can be applied in a similar way to actually make legal services more accessible. So we basically shared for the first time our vision for that. And again, that includes a new type of public blockchain for the legal industry, and specifically with privacy features that help create private smart contracts. And on top of that, we're building a software layer that we want developers and businesses to be able to come and leverage and to be able to really easily build decentralized applications. So these types of applications could be anything from a referral network, an Uber for law, but again, you're taking out the middleman, so there's no intermediaries because you can use escrow and cryptocurrencies. So you're able to offer services much cheaper. So you can imagine a litigation fund that's been raised by the crowd but tokenized and fractionalized. So you can, for the first time, own a small part of a litigation fund. And these types of business models weren't previously possible, and blockchain's making that possible. So we just shared a bit of our vision for bringing that to the market. And our, I guess, pride and joy and the showcase for this technology, as mentioned earlier, is Legal Aid, which has two main types of offerings. One is a matching service for lawyers that are interested in doing pro bono. They can connect with community legal centres that are vetting clients that are walking off the street that are meeting a means and merits test showing they're disadvantaged. And those lawyers are then able to help and be matched with those clients and rewarded through a cryptocurrency rewards token, much like a frequent flyers. And you can also raise funds from the crowd. So social justice cases can basically go through a Kickstarter scenario and raise money for cases that really that the people want to get behind. And that's all done completely transparently. So for the first time, you can see as a charity where all your money goes, because again, it's sitting in smart contracts, completely transparent, and you can follow the dollar all the way to making a difference in a client's life.
Wonderful. What type of feedback have you received, or are you looking to receive from this solution?
Well, it's been great. Again, GLBC was a great opportunity to announce this to the global audience for the first time. And it was a great platform to do that. So lots of like-minded people in the audience and also on the stage. And the feedback's been quite overwhelming. So we did announce at the time as well that we just received $1.5 million in funding, in seed funding to conduct a public sale. And so from all sides, there's been a lot of momentum and it's been quite chaotic and in a good way. But the reception was great. I mean, we connected with law firms like Baker Hotstetter that are really bullish on cryptocurrencies and just implemented a internal rewards token. So, it's really amazing who's been working on what, because again, we announced this and it really attracted all the right people. Thomson Reuters, who also presented the Contract Express product, they were really interested in collaborating on some, they were in the audience and we had a great chat afterwards, and they're quite interested in legal ID. So they have a lot of data on the world's lawyers and judges and just a lot of data in general on the industry. So looking at ways that we could leverage that to provide a better service. So yeah, it's been great. So connecting with law firms, small, medium, large, and also lots of legal technology companies. Again, one of the other presenters, Legal Beagle, has some really great solutions and doing some great work on access to justice. And so we have opened some conversations with them. And naturally, with Integra Ledger, we'd like to integrate over time to make sure that we have matching standards and schemas so that you can kind of traverse from a public blockchain to a permission blockchain quite easily.
Wonderful. Congratulations on that. Are there any challenges that you're anticipating about providing your solution and product?
Of course, the legal industry has notoriously been maybe a slow adopter of technology in general. But what's quite amazing right now is just this climate around innovation. I think it's taken a long time for legal tech to really shine through both funding and also adoption. But now I think that we're at a time where the market's changed and the law firms have finally changed their mentality. So LegalZoom raising $500 million, Kira raising $50 million. So there's big money flowing into the industry. And at the same time, there's great use cases popping up within just the blockchain sphere. So again, Integra Ledger is one good indication of that. The Global Legal Blockchain Consortium is another. So I think it's close to 90 members now. And in Australia, they've announced the Australian National Blockchain. So a consortium between law firms. Herbert Smith Freehills is one of the driving law firms behind that. But they're collaborating with IBM and Data 61, so to create a national infrastructure for blockchain and law firms and businesses to collaborate. So all of that combined is really changing the conversation. And naturally, groups like Accord Project, there's so much great stuff happening. Open Law has announced a collaboration with Rocket Lawyer. So I think what's happening now is the conversation is changing for the CIOs, the CTOs, and just lawyers in general. One big, I wouldn't say concern, but a lawyer's core commodity is a contract. So when you hear about smart contracts and automation, naturally things like that really prick up the ears, and they get quite intrigued about what the future of the industry is going to look like. So I think blockchain is really creating that conversation. So there's a lot of challenges just given the complex nature of the technology. It's a bit like a train coming at full speed and you got to lay out the tracks as the train's coming. So a lot of this infrastructure, just like we experienced, we got to build for the first time, and there's a lot of research and a lot of experimentation. And again, these blockchains carry a lot of value in terms of the assets that lie in there. So you need to make sure security is really well researched and tested. So again, we're in the early stages. We're building out an MVP for legal aid and working with some law firms and legal community centers on that, and legal ID as well. So we're putting those two out into the market where we think adoption can happen a lot quicker as well. And we'd like to see maybe a lawyer, their first experience with cryptocurrency being potentially some rewards they've earned for doing pro bono work. That would be a great and satisfying thing to see.
So what type of role would you like to have within the GLBC and also Legaler have in the GLBC, along with any type of solutions that you would like to see come out of it?
Yeah, I think it's early days, and one good thing with GLBC and the current climate, again, everyone knows it's quite early. Everyone knows that we need to collaborate both across the solutions and the research, but also across standards. And I think that's one really key thing that is going to happen. And just given that it's a global consortium, you can get insight from all the different countries involved, the regulatory concerns. GDPR is a big concern across Europe, but not only for the companies based in Europe, but also companies servicing those customers. So blockchain obviously brings some complexities around things like right to be forgotten. So again, just creating standards around security, again, around schemas, around APIs, just in general, how things will work, given it's the legal industry. It's important to get that right. So again, Accord Project's doing a great job of that. I think that GLBC will collaborate and also do a great job of that also. And with Legler itself, obviously, there's some, I'll call them limitations right now with existing public solutions. So Ethereum is probably the most common for smart contracts, offering a Turing complete virtual machine. So there's a few scaling solutions, maybe that you can call them second layer scaling solutions that can allow you to create blockchains that run off of the main chain. So we're currently researching ways to create a connection between our blockchain, which is again calibrated for the needs of the legal industry, but also leveraging the economic security of $30 to $50 billion, depending on what day of the week it is, blockchain like Ethereum. So what that means is that we can have very fast computation, very fast implementation. We don't have to really have consensus over many, sometimes years to implement one upgrade or feature. So we can have a very, very fast blockchain running with privacy elements, but it's still got the economic security using things like Plasma Cash that we're researching right now. You can have the economic security of a broader public blockchain. So what that means is that you can still have, I guess, settlement or enforcement done on Ethereum, but you can have computations happen really fast on a public blockchain. And, it'd be nice to kind of be, I guess, that Ethereum for the legal industry.
So it sounds like blockchain is starting to be more accepted within the legal industry as a possible technology solution. Are there any myths that you would like to dispel or still trying to overcome or challenges with blockchain?
Yeah, I guess the key offering, the value proposition the blockchain offers is decentralization. So we've had numerous types of evolutions in just networks and databases themselves. So I think really having businesses, developers think long and hard about the use case they're trying to deliver through blockchain technology and making sure that's one that's worth doing, because it's not often easy. Again, the technology is quite new. It can be expensive and slow. And so one of the things that, again, we're doing with our sidechain is that we can actually offer faster and cheaper computation, so you don't have to compete with gas fees on Ethereum, because you're not competing with a multi-million-dollar transaction just to get one maybe update on your legal or ID reputation. So there's a lot of, I guess, reverse engineering of ideas, both for ICOs, for blockchain solutions. That's good, but again, it could not provide the best solution in the end. So I think the blockchain is not the be-all and end-all solution for everything, and there's a process, right? So you really need to see what data you need to share. You need to see what data needs to be transparent across all stakeholders. And again, there's different types of blockchains out there with permission, public, private. But ultimately, I think the key benefit and the promise of this technology is decentralization. And, there's various impediments to that currently, whether it's like mining pools that have too much of the hash rate, whether it's, centralized authorities taking control of certain blockchains. So ultimately, the same way Bitcoin promised anyone that's, unbanked currently, they can have an actual bank, not just a bank account, a bank in their pocket with a mobile phone connection. Decentralization really has the power to really change the fabric of society, and it's a pretty exciting time.
So, Stevie, previously you mentioned that there was a software layer. What does that entail?
So one of the challenges that we encountered initially was, again, the lack of infrastructure that currently exists. So for decentralized technologies, and specifically for the legal industry. So we're offering a software layer. It's basically a software development kit that sits atop of the blockchain. And again, calibrated for the requirements of the legal industry. And this creates the base of that infrastructure so that others can come and build decentralized applications, and it'll be open source. And again, we're starting with Legaler ID, which is a self-sovereign identity. For a lawyer, it can have all your reviews from multiple different platforms, your reputation. You can update your profile in one place, and you can update across different platforms, giving you the ability to single sign-on. And even the communication tool we've built to date will open source that so others can integrate that into their platforms. And the rest of the suite looks a bit like transaction tools, payment tools, dispute resolution that's automated through smart contracts. And again, all these are autonomous applications, but they integrate and they can be used as individual building blocks as part of the SDK. So we're pretty excited to get that out to the market. And things like electronic signature, you can integrate that into your decentralized application, but signatures are being hashed to the blockchain, so there's immutable evidence of a document being signed by parties. Things like that are pretty exciting. So again, we're starting with the ID part, naturally being the first part of any platform, and then kind of moving on to the rest of the suite of tools.
Before we close out for today, I have one last question for you. If our listeners would like to follow up with you and find out more about Legaler, how do they reach you?
So the easiest way is legaler.com, which is legal with an ER on the end. And you can kind of get me personally at Twitter at Ghiassi, Ghiassi, or Legaler HQ. And we also have Blockchain for Law, which is blockchainfor.law, which is a global private network of legal industry stakeholders that are interested in the intersection of law and blockchain. So we have all types of people in there that really provide insight from regulatory to token sales to security. So it's a great way to stay in touch. So feel free to find me in there.
Well, we've reached the end of the road for today's episode. I want to thank our guests for joining us today. We also want to thank our listeners for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please rate us in Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time for another episode of On the Road with Legal Talk Network.
If you'd like more information about what you've heard today, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find us on Twitter and Facebook, or download our free Legal Talk Network app in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.